So the first thing I wanted to tell you or talk about is unrelated to the movie, and that is that 65 is a very underrated movie. Like it's a very enjoyable movie.
I know it's weird because they added me to the movie, so I guess it was already shot, and they eventually screened it and tested it, and it was like, oh, it's missing something, and then they added me and Chloe to the film, and so I mean, it was for me, it was work. I was happy, it was
Yeah.
during the pandemic, so anytime you get a call from your agent, and you're like, um, you're gonna be booked, and you don't have to audition. I'm like, let's do it.
Yeah, I mean, the other person who's been on my podcast before during the pandemic, I think, was Demetrius Gross. He's a great
Hmm.
actor too, huh? That
Yes.
man,
Have you
that man can
seen?
act. That man can act.
Oh my gosh. I know. Every time I'm looking at the movie, I'm like, I was just telling my sister this last night. I'm like, he's so good.
Mm.
He just gets it. It's all in the eyes. Did you hear that ding?
I didn't hear a ding.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
Okay, because
yeah,
that was an alert on my computer. I never know what you guys can hear on your end.
yeah. I didn't hear it, but yeah, he's
Okay.
so underrated. Like I'm all in on him. You know,
Yeah, he is
um,
really good. Have you seen the film?
of course, yes, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
yeah.
So we're gonna get to the film, but I wanted to ask you because you have a comedic background, right?
Hmm.
I feel like comedic actors, and it was clear from this film.
Are we starting? This
Yeah, I'm
is this is
starting. I'm
it.
going. I'm going. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I thought you were ready to go. I'm sorry.
It's like take one. Let's go. Let's do it. It's take two. Let's do it.
So
I'm
so I
ready. Go
so
ahead.
so I feel like comedic actors can, or they do make for phenomenal dramatic actors, right? You look at Jim Carrey,
Hmm.
you look at a lot of the different, like they do a great job. But I feel like when dramatic actors try to be funny and it's not natural for them, I feel like it's a
Hmm.
disaster. I feel like it's a disaster.
Hmm.
So
Well, I
what's your
think
take on that?
with comedians trying to be dramatic or
Well,
dramatic actors trying to be
the idea
comedians.
that comedians kind of come from like stand-up comedians, let's face it, they come from a place of pain, right?
Hmm.
Some more obvious than others, but that's what makes it
Hmm.
funny because they're lashing out at whatever they're talking about.
Hmm.
And I feel like people who aren't funny when they try to be funny. So I think comedians, people natural to comedy,
Hmm.
it adds such a affect and bonus when you try to do a role like your role here, right? So
Hmm.
you have a good sense of emotion. I think comedy in
Hmm.
that sense is I don't know what's your take on that.
Well, that's something that I've heard. Like comedians make the best dramatic actors, and for me, I mean, I guess I can agree with that because some of my favorite comedians are really good actors, like Jim Carrey, Robin Williams, Jamie Foxx, and I think it's just once a comedian decide to go there and just like let go and be vulnerable, and that's the same as doing stand up. You really have to be vulnerable to get on stage with just a mic and talk about things that you've created in your mind that you think, are funny. It's funny. So I think it's just the vulnerability, and comedians are more used to kind of bearing their soul. So I mean, I'm not just going to say it because I'm a comedian, but I
Right.
think they do make some of the better dramatic actors.
I think stand up's one of the toughest thing an entertainer can do.
Oh yeah, it's you never get good at it. And even when you get good at it, you're still perfecting your craft. You're still perfecting your voice, and it's. I mean, I've been doing it for 20 plus years, and
Wow.
I'm still learning every day how to be more spontaneous on stage, how to take a joke to the next level. So it's always room to improve.
So my old ass is 50 years old, and I know a lot of. I feel like my stand up comedy knowledge is good. And every time
Hmm.
somebody tells me Chappelle, who is great, is the best stand up
Hmm.
comedian, I'm like, did Eddie Murphy like does he not exist? Like his stand up was some of the best I've ever heard in my life. Like forget
Hmm.
the actor Eddie Murphy, the raw, the delirious, all that other stuff. My God, one of the best ever, right?
Yeah, I definitely when you start talking like top three, Eddie Murphy, Richard Pryor,
Yeah.
Dave Chappelle, it's like we got to get a woman up there to crack that, top three. I mean, we have some funny women, but when you think about comedians, you really don't think about women. That's not the first, thing you think of. Like, oh, this female comedian. And I know, people like to separate female comedians, male comedians, but to me, it should just be funny. If you're funny, man or
Yeah,
woman.
yeah. That's a great point. One more thing before we hop into this wonderful film. Um, what do you think about those stand-up comedians like Matt Rife that have an interaction with the crowd? I feel like that's always been the stand-up comedian's worst nightmare is the crowd getting
Hmm.
involved in the show when they're not supposed to be a part of it.
Hmm.
Does
Hmm.
that make it 10 times more difficult, you think?
Well, let me just tell you, Matt Rife is genius. It
Yeah.
looks easy, but it's not easy to do crowd work and then make a joke and then be witty and then be funny. So I think he's kind of carved a lane on his own and, he does it really well. So, crowd work, everybody doesn't do crowd work. Actually, some people think that you should never talk to the audience.
Right.
You should
Right.
just have your set, get up there, do your set. But I'm like one of those people. I come from a theater background, and if you drop something on the stage, you have to pay attention to it and pick it up, or the audience is going to look at that thing you dropped all night. So that's the same thing as someone saying something to you. It's heckling, but there's ways to kind of like deal with hecklers in a funny, authentic, and cruelest way. But I think Matt is. Oh my gosh, he's brilliant, and I'm so happy for his success because everybody has their own journey and he found
Yeah.
his lane and he's riding out in it.
That's well put. There's a English comedian that deals with hecklers. His name's Jimmy, and I can't remember his last name now. But
Mhm.
like when they come at him, he insults them beyond belief, and I'm like, who? I don't want no part of that. But so I want to hop into this wonderful film. But before I get to the film, I want to talk about Angel Studios in particular, right? So like,
Mhm.
what a fresh and innovative way. Like so, we're looking at either Sound of Freedom or Sound of Hope. What I love in both movies is that they've provided a voice for these kids that have no voice, and I think
Mhm.
that's just beautiful in every sense of the way, right? Because giving a voice to kids who are innocent and young and deserving of protection. I
Mhm.
just love what Sound of Hope has done. I love what Sound of Freedom has done. And I love the fresh perspective of what Angel
Mhm.
Studios is doing here. I just think it's really cool and really a breath of fresh air, Nika. What do you think?
Well, Sound of Hope is the story of Possum Trot is an independent film, and when Angel Studios came aboard to distribute the film, they have a guild, so they have over 300,000 people who voted to see this movie come to big theaters. So that's the great thing about um, Angel Studios. They have a system within a system, and they really tap into what people want to see, and so I mean, you've seen the film. A lot of people have seen it. These are the stories that the people in this country we want to be. We want to be proud of where of where the film is going, but we also want to take notice of what's happening in this country with so many kids being in the foster care system.
Mm, mm. So let me ask you, because Sound of Hope does have many religious undertones. It's a very faith based. But it's a great story as well. Nika, is
Mhm.
the line difficult and delicate, right? Because you don't want to browbeat people to the point where you're trying to convert them religiously, or you don't want that,
Mhm.
but you also want to tell a story. So I feel like it's a very delicate balance. Do you think
Mhm.
it's a delicate balance? What's your take on that? Telling the story, the balance between telling the story and I don't want to say promoting religion, but I think you get what I mean.
Well, I think them being believers is just a small part of the story,
Mm,
right?
mm,
The real story is the kids being removed out of horrible situations and a community from a very impoverished area in East Texas coming to their rescue. That's the story. And so whether you believe in Christ or you don't believe in Christ, you don't
right,
believe in Jesus, that's your personal uh, take. And
right.
I don't think the movie is telling you go and believe in Jesus and then go adopt kids. I don't think that's the story, but
Right.
we want to make sure that this story is being told and there's no agendas underneath it. It's just a good story about a group of people, First Lady Donna Martin and Bishop WC going out and following their hearts and following the call to do something about what was happening in their part of the world in East Texas.
Yeah, that's a great answer. What about somebody that maybe isn't religious? Can they you think I know how to answer this, but do you think they could appreciate the movie just as much?
Well, then I have to ask, do you have a heart? Do you love kids? Let's just
Yeah,
start
yeah,
there.
yeah,
And
yeah.
listen, everybody's not going to go out and adopt kids. That would be great, but we know that's not going to happen. But you can be conscious about how you interact with your local foster care system and how you interact with kids just being in systems that we know are not good for them. So it's just the tugging of the heart. And I've talked to so many people, and they say when they leave this film, they're thinking about what more they can do, and I think that's really what we want.
What was the final total? 77? Was it 77 kids that were adopted?
Yes,
That's
77 kids by 22 families.
how do you a story like that? And again, we go back to the kids, right? So, like, just the I feel like we're missing a lot of this in our streaming, in our movies today. Like, just a story that makes you feel good,
Mhm.
a strong story about a human element. Why is this a story like this? Why don't we see more stories like this, Nika? Why is like where's the labor of love and a passion project like this? Why don't we see more of it? Why aren't we um, encouraging more of this type of work?
I think as a country, as a nation, we're disconnected. I think it definitely started with the pandemic. People just don't want to reach over and help someone who's in need, or even sometimes just interacting with someone who have don't have as much as you do, and we're talking about kids here,
Right.
kids that didn't ask to come into this world, kids that are brought up into horrible situations. And I think that's what this film is attempting to do, bring some hope into the world, and let people know all is not lost. We're still fighting the good fight. We're still here, and we're still going to continue to do what we can within our reach.
That's an awesome answer. And the stats of, like, the prison stats, the gang stats, the
Mhm,
mental illness or mental health stats,
mhm,
of kids that, you're right. They're put in this position where, okay, you didn't create this, but deal with the
mhm,
consequences. You deal with it, you pick
mhm,
up the pieces and you move on. Um,
mhm,
so that's so well said. So, I mean, that's what makes this story so much more special is that you see people trying to do something about these horrible
mhm,
statistics, right? The 90%, the 80%. So
mhm.
say whatever you want on that, Nico, whatever you want to comment.
Well, I think it just boils down to kind of taking the attention off of ourselves and putting it on the people that really need the help. And I'm always reminded, I'm an actor,
Mm.
and sometimes, I go through seasons of not working and feeling, like I'm never gonna be employed, and having these, pity parties. And then I have to remind myself, like, I'm blessed. I'm an able-bodied person. I can go out and do things to improve my circumstances. But when you're looking at a kid that's in a system, or you're looking at siblings that have been separated, and you just, like, your heart just breaks in a million pieces, and you're like, well, what more can I do? It's so much you can do. You can volunteer, you can start nonprofits, you can have back to school drives, you can have a movie night, take some kids to the movies. It's so many things that we can do as a nation, as a people, if we stop being divided by things that really don't matter.
Yeah, that's another good answer. And I wondered when I was watching this film, I'm like, I wonder if the kids who are in stable situations, like teenagers, 15, 16,
Mhm,
17-year-olds, if they realize what they have, like if they
mhm,
realize how lucky they are and what
mhm,
some kids, especially in this film, are battling against, the fight they're doing
mhm,
every single day. I guess it comes
mhm,
down to gratitude and appreciation, but I don't know if that's
mhm,
if teenagers really, that's their strong point. But I don't know.
mhm.
I mean, I just got really thinking about, do people really are they grateful for what they have, these kids today?
Mhm. I think kids are it's hard to live in this world of the age of social media.
Yeah.
Our kids are being inundated with so much, and you're seeing young kids take their lives and be bullied and go through so much at such a young age. And I think we have to kind of, like, we got to start putting our focus on the kids. Like, we're
Right.
losing our kids, and that means kids that are in stable homes, and that kids that are in the foster care system. We have to take the attention off ourselves. We're all healing, right? We all got
Mm.
something we need to heal from.
Right.
But if we take that extra step to really be involved in a kid's life and pour into kids, I think you'll see a shift. And I think that's what this movie is all about. We want to see a shift in this country. We want people to be conscious of what's happening, because this is a fixable problem.
Right. Does it have double the meaning for you, right? Because obviously you're acting, you're doing something you love, and you have a great filmography. But, like, in this
Mhm,
case in particular, your work leads. I don't want to say because you have other projects are meaningful too. But I feel like this
mhm,
is meaningful in another way where you're actually, like, your work is adding to somebody's life to their benefit. I
mhm,
mean, I guess all actors are artists, and that does happen. but I feel like this is
Mhm.
at a much deeper level, right? You're really like you talked about people actually doing something. Well, I feel like that's what you're doing here.
Mhm. Well, I mean, I had to have this revelation after watching the film. I think maybe the third or fourth time that, oh my gosh, I and my siblings and I, we could have ended up in foster care.
Yeah.
We could have easily went into a home where we were separated from our mom. We did for a while, but eventually my mom got clean and got her kids back. But that just weighed on my heart, and I said, well, now I have to definitely tap into creating more programs for kids who are either going through the system or aged out. And so that's kind of been my focus after filming, using my nonprofit to do those things. And I'm excited because I have all the resources, and I know God put me here, so I know He's going to provide. And I'm excited to see the next step of Sound of Hope becoming like the mantra for my life and everything that I want to attain.
Did your mom, or I thought I heard this in another interview you did. Did mom early on in her life, was she in was she in that same system? Am I right with that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, she was.
I don't know. I guess it becomes personal at that point for you. Where do we go from here, Nika? I mean, outside of everybody getting involved, like cinematically, what can we do here? So we have Sound of Hope, wonderful movie, but where do we go
Mhm.
from here? Is there other plans to make something creatively? Tell me about anything that you can add to that.
I think what we do with this film when it comes out of the theaters and it's streaming, and then it creates a life of its own, because this film is more than just a movie. It really is a movement to keep people on their toes about the systems. And there's a lot of systems in this country built to keep people down and to keep people in this like dire need. And we, like, I hate to be like a civil rights activist or a 1970, like, we are the people have the power. You
Right.
know what I mean? Like, if we're waiting for the government to do anything about these kids being in the foster care, we're going to be waiting a long time. So I would hope that this movie would ignite people to create, resources for families that want to adopt, support systems for individuals who want to foster. Like, we got to rally around people who, because people do. I've been getting DMs. People are like, "Oh my gosh, this was a sign for me to go ahead and start the process of adopting." And I was so happy. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
it's like when you're teaching high school and you get that one student. You wish, like, oh my God, I just need one person to
Yeah.
to pick up the mantle and kind of keep it going. But I think this movie is gonna it's making a huge impact.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Is there anything else you want to say about the film that I might have left out? Super watchable film, really meaningful. Is there anything that you wanted to add from your perspective?
I would just tell people, go to the website, angelstudios.com / Rose of Sharon. That's my nonprofit. When you purchase the tickets from that link, my nonprofit, Rose of Sharon, receives a portion of the proceeds, and then we can continue the work that we've started.
Nika, congratulations on your wonderful film. You did a great
Thank
job, and
you.
I'm really happy for you.
Thank you. I like this interview. It was very cool. Thank you.
Thank you, Nika.